Hello and welcome to the sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Open in Baltimore, part of the SCG Tour. I'm Nick Miller alongside Kevin Jones, the daddy.
How's it going?
As you're known to many. How you doing today?
Not too bad. Glad to be playing Magic again. I've been a couple weeks off, so
Kevin Jones, you made your name as playing the Jeskai aggro deck. You know, the first standard open with Khans of Tarkir, you won with Jeskai. Today, we have Shadows over Innistrad, new standard. You're taking out red for blue, for green, and you're playing this Bant Company deck that you kind of worked on with Jim Davis and the Jessups.
Yeah, so I worked on it a little bit on my own at first, and then I had to convince them that it was good, and they came along somewhat reluctantly. Andrew was still playing something else, so 4 of the 5 of us are playing it. But yeah, it's really good. We turned on to this guy super late. But
we got to talk about this card first.
We will talk about that card.
We've seen the Bant Company shell before, but you have some new cards. We have to talk about this flip card. This card's been running under the radar. Duskwatch Recruiter flips into Crawling Horde. This card looks very cool.
Howler?
Yeah,
yep.
We're just gonna. That name's impossible to say. We want to talk about this though because this is a card no one has talked about on any of the spoilers. You know, Bant Company was a thing beforehand. No one kind of mentioned this card in this type of deck.
Yes, so we had to pick up so many of these before the tournament because like nobody had them. I had one in my pre-release sealed and I just left it on the table, like gave it away. I was like, there's no way this card's any good, whatever. But it's like the bluest green creature I've ever seen. It like cheats you on mana and like draws cards. It's like it's really good with the rest of the deck, like the cards in the deck that you want to keep mana untapped. So I really like it in that regard. Also, like, it allows you just to, you know, play 2 spells in 1 turn when you don't draw company, which company decks have historically had a bit of a problem with, because there's a high saturation of 3 drops and not too many cheap interactive spells. So sometimes when you fall behind on board, if you don't have a company, it's tough to catch up. And this helps with that. It lets you, you know, build your own company with a Reflector Mage and a Krasis on 4 mana the same way you would with a company.
Right.
So I really like it in that regard. It's just really good. Yep. We went from 2 to 3 to 4, and they like had to drag me kicking and screaming into the 4th one. I'm like, this card's not good in multiples, which I guess it really isn't.
Sure.
But like you can, you know, always trade it off or flip one and not flip the other one, blah, 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 blah. Right. Like, there's ways to work it out. But yeah, I love it. So I think it's great.
We'll break down the deck. You know, we've seen most of these cards before. Stratus Dancer, Jay, Sylvan Advocate. We've seen all these pieces. Nissa.
Yeah, sure. These are all pretty self-explanatory for a company deck.
But then you've kind of built this deck in a sort of Kevin Jones Flash style of deck. You have a lot of things you can hold your mana up for, from Krasis to Ojutai's Command, Dramoka's Command, Collected Company, Archangel Avacyn. You got all this kind of play that you like to do on a deck.
Yeah, so like I always thought that a good thing to do in week 1 is to have a deck that's very difficult to play against. Now, like with the Jeskai deck that we alluded to earlier, like you have a super linear, powerful, aggressive deck that's boarding into functionally a control deck. And like the transformational sideboard thing is super difficult to play against. And this deck instead just leaves up 4 mana, and if it has a flip recruiter, your creature spells cost 1 less. So consequentially, your Avacyn costs 4, which is the same mana as Company and Ojutai's Command. So like you can have any of like 20 different cards. You know, you have 20 cards in your deck that have flash or whatever. So like, it might not actually be that high, but close enough. But so like it's really very difficult for your opponents to know what you're going to do, and they often won't know what's in your deck at all, so they're just going to walk headlong into the flash things before the format is super defined. And once they are, like it becomes like a total catch-22, which 4 mana instant you want to play around, or if you want to play around, you know, a tap creature or a creature that makes your whole team indestructible. It's like the old Mistbind Click Cryptic Command Fairies Conundrum, where your opponent doesn't know what to do with their mana and what order to cast their spells in. So I like having the onus on them to like, you know, make all these tough decisions as opposed to being on me.
Yeah, when I talked to Jim Davis, he said like the huge point about, you know, the Duskwatch Recruiter is the fact that you can kind of have Avacyn, a card that, you know, if people think you're playing a company deck, they might not suspect you have it in there. It's only 5, you know, it's 5 mana. You're not going to hit it on company, but you can kind of get it for 4. You get to play into all your tricks and just kind of trap them that way. Another card we got from Shadows over Innistrad, Tireless Tracker. This card beat the crap out of me at the pre-release.
Oh yeah, it's just totally unfair and limited.
Yeah.
So there's a thing that was mentioned in like a Sam Black article earlier in the week, and he said something like, if this card is really, really, really good and limited, you should probably give it a shot or at least consider it. And that's kind of an extension of that. It just felt really good in board stalls. Company decks often, you know, with a high density of 2/3s, 3/3s, like bigger ground creatures, you get into a lot of board stalls. So as a result of that, Tracker is pretty good because it can grind through the board stall, draw you extra cards, helps you go longer. And some decks can't kill it, and it just goes crazy. It's huge. It's the best thing to draw because command with if it's like a 6/5 or whatever. So yeah, I like Tracker. It's a good company hit that isn't that you can hit on an empty board, because you often cast your companies when they have stuff in play and you tap and bounce their things and like get a huge tempo swing and then take over the game in that one big turn. But like, if your opponent just has nothing in play, you need some proactive company targets as well, and that's why cards like this are super great as well, because you can just start beating down and put the initiative on yourself to force them to do something.
Right, I guess a little minor thing that could come across the line too is Declaration Stone's a big removal spell these days.
Yeah.
You get to get a clue off of that, you get to grow the Tracker, even if you haven't, created any clues, but you even have the lands that are going to be getting you some clues as well.
On most boards, I can't see them casting Declaration on anything other than a Tracker. Like if they're in a spot where they have the option to cast it, I mean, they probably cast it on this or die.
Right.
But like, they probably cast it on the Tracker, but in the event that like, they cast it and then you played the Tracker or something like that, you can definitely get some equity there. I think it's super good with company. It's pretty intuitive to put a powerful 3-mana card in your deck, and it like company takes about the opportunity cost of casting a 3-mana 3/2 at sorcery speed. So it's a great fit for the deck for sure.
Now, Bant Company existed before Shadows of Innistrad.
Yeah.
And then the question was, is the mana going to be good enough for this deck to go forward? You guys have tested the deck, and I know Andrew said that the reason he didn't play it was he wasn't quite sold on the mana. How does the mana work in this deck?
So I had a Shadowland heavy mana base initially, like 3 of each, with 5 or 6 basics, and battle lands as well, and Lumbering Falls. And that deck couldn't really incorporate Evolving Wilds, but I found that Evolving Wilds, while it's not, so Evolving Wilds was bad because it wasn't good with the Shadowlands, because it was only a basic land in play and not in your hand. So once we started cutting Shadowlands, I realized that Evolving Wilds is just the best thing to turn on your battle lands. So I'm pretty close to maxing out battle lands, and my brother has this really cool program that he ran the math on the mana base, like Frank Carson style, and plugs in like the mana symbols and everything, and what turn you need double by, and blah 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 blah. And like he made this, he told me how many sources you need, and if you can do it. And there was a Harbinger of Tides in here that got cut for mana considerations.
All right.
Got like a lot of easy to cast. Like you see very few double of a certain color costs in the deck. And usually you end up like being splashing white. So like most of the cards are blue and green. And the white is the splash. So but like a lot of your duels tap for white so that you have your double is like built in. Yeah, so I don't know, the mana was tough to work on, but we figured it out. We've got 8 basics in our deck and 4 Evolving Wilds, 7 battle lands. And this card, which is just
Lumbering
great
Falls
with the rest of the deck, with Advocate
is
and
so good.
Just putting pressure on and clogging the board and stuff.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I like the mana a lot.
Well, you found the new cards that you wanted to play. You fixed the mana. Sideboard, we're just going to talk about a couple of options here because we've seen most of these cards before. Lantern Scout, but you have Clip Wings, Declaration in Stone, Invocation of Saint Traft.
Yeah, this is. I was going to say you can thank Jim for that, but I would say you can blame Jim for that because I'm utterly unconvinced if this is good or not. But it's our plan against ramp. Like your clock, while being really good against other decks when your cards do things, and when like Company plus Command plus Avacyn, like all your powerful mid-game cards present inevitability that other like mid-range creature decks struggle with, and a ton of 2-for-1s. But like when their top is just so much over the top of your top, like ramp would be, you need to be able to like go under them and go a little wide, and this card helps you do that. Like the best target is Sylvan Advocate because it's a 2/3 and dodges Kozilek's return.
All right.
But like what you really want to do is you want to make sure that you can make them take turns off to do things instead of ramp, and like turns off to force your board so that you can pass with mana untapped to make your negates better and your companies better. And the way that you do this is by, even if you throw this on an X2, like they have to take the turn off and return it instead of casting a ramp spell, and then like if they ramp you negate, and if they don't you company, and blah 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 blah. Like it bridges the gap, and so that they don't have 6 lands in play on turn 4 when you're trying to get your initiative into play.
You're
so yeah, I
hand.
really like it. It presents a powerful initiative that they're forced to deal with.
Force their hand so they have to play into all your tricks, just like you're kind of making everyone else play into everything else.
Yeah.
Well, the deck looks great. You're 2-0 so far.
Yeah.
No buys for you this weekend. But
run over these guys real quick.
Clip Wings, we know what it kills flyers.
Yeah, it's great against an untapped Ojutai. and a lot of times you'll be Reflector Maging Hangerback Walkers, so as a result of that, against the Abbey token style decks, the turn they go to Abbey, they don't always have other flyers, so it's a great answer to Ormondal as well. Yeah, and that's it. And Declaration's just an absurd removal spell.
Yeah. Everyone has seen that card, and everyone has just immediately realized that's the removal spell you need to be playing.
It's format defining for sure.
Yeah. All right, well, Kevin, thanks for joining me here in the sideboard.
It's been a pleasure, thank you.
Not a problem. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Baltimore.